I met Kobe Bryant when I was in high school. He said that basketball was 70% mental, 30% physical. And it's never been more true.
This is 70-30 with Thomas Viglianco.
Welcome back to another podcast episode of 70-30 with Thomas Viglianco. I am sitting down with Pure Sweat founder, NBA skills trainer, a young man that he's younger than me, so I can say young man. A young man that's having a book. His first book dropped February 11th. Stop bullshitting yourself, and many other things. Training a lot of NBA stars and so forth from St. Louis, Missouri. Drew Hanlen. Drew, appreciate you coming on the podcast, man.
Man, this is already my favorite podcast. This is the first time I've been called young in a long time. So, I'm 35 now. I feel like I'm the old man, when I start having to stretch before workouts and stuff like that, when I get the occasional swell up of the knee. So I appreciate you for starting the podcast in a positive way right there.
No, a little bit older than you, but we come from the same cloth when it comes to player development and the mentorship in a lot of ways. We've never officially met. We've talked several times, but this is the first time we're seeing each other really face to face. We've had some crossing of paths in Las Vegas and so forth. But again, appreciate you coming on. My thought is to talk about your book coming out February 11th. Talk about the guys that you train in the NBA. But to me, like I train NBA guys, I train high school players. I do a lot of that stuff and Viglianco Hoops. I feel like I've built a really good brand in the Midwest and kind of nationwide. I want to talk more things like high school stuff and mentorship and more of the detailed stuff with you, just because I think that stuff's so important and kind of gets glossed over a lot of times with like maybe the big time radio stations and podcasts and so forth. So, let's start with this. And you probably don't ever get this question asked. When did you realize that this is bigger than you? Meaning the players and what you're doing, your passion and your journey. When did you realize that this is bigger than you?
I'd say there's two big moments. I mean, the first one was, I started by chance. I didn't grow up wanting to be a skills trainer. I wanted to be an NBA player like everybody else. And when I was a junior in high school, Brad Beal's parents approached me after we actually played against Brad Beal. And, I was one of the best players in St. Louis and Missouri. And, I was, had all these Division I scholarships, and they approached me and said, can you show Brad how to work? And, Brad came in and did a workout with me, and about, 30 minutes into it, he stopped. I was killing him. And, we didn't talk for another 6 months. And then after his freshman year, his parents came back out and said, hey, listen, we don't care if Brad likes it or hates it. We want him to work with you. And he started working out with me. And Brad, second game of his sophomore year, after averaging 8 points a game as a freshman, he scored, I think, 51 or 52 points the second game of his sophomore season. And everyone's like, what did you do? What did you do to improve your game? And so that's how I started training. It was basically just I killed myself when I was going through workouts. There was no load management. It was not necessarily working smart at the time. It was just pure hard work. And so that was the first time that I really noticed that, wow, my methods, my work ethic, if I can pass that on to other athletes, they can get these crazy results as well. And then the second one is a cool moment. And you don't get too many of these pinch me moments like you think you do. You think there's certain milestones that you hit that are just going to make you feel great. But one of them for me was there was one time where I was in Spain, and I was flying back, and I was catching a flight. And right before I was going through, where you cross over into U.S. territories, I had somebody sprinting, full sprint, Coach Drew, with this accent. And he finally gets to me, and he's like, Coach Drew, you don't know who I am, but he's like, you changed my life. And he started telling me the story about him consuming a piece of my content that was motivational, talking about, hey, listen, you're basically, one commitment away from changing everything. Then he started doing my programs. And sure enough, the reason he was over in Spain was he was playing professional basketball in Spain. And he talked about how he was depressed and was getting ready to quit the game of basketball. And that one video sparked, a change in his journey that he wanted to thank me for personally. And I remember we took a picture, and I got on that flight from Spain back to America, and the whole flight I couldn't stop thinking about it. And I was like, listen, one piece of content can change somebody's life. So keep putting out good content, keep helping players, keep helping coaches, keep being a resource for good. And, those two separate moments, the one moment was, when it hit me like, wow, like this is something you can do. You can just, apply all the hardworking principles, to players' games, and you can really help them out and get results. And then the second thing was that moment in Spain that I just was like, wow, content, make sure you're sharing good content, because that is a chance to impact lives that you don't even have a chance of crossing for the most part.
That's awesome. I can say for myself, when I started doing the training, it was I kind of went a different path. So when I played pro basketball in the summers, I went home to Alabama. One of my best buds was living in Nebraska. I came out here, got a financial job in the summer, which most pro basketball players don't do. And I consider myself a smart, educated guy. I went to William and Mary in Division I, all this stuff. So I consider myself a smart human. And I did some training. Like the first week I was in Lincoln, Nebraska, some people saw me at a restaurant, asked if they could train some young boys. And I was like, I don't do that. I went out to a farm in Nebraska, and like the rest is history. That two of the kids, like one of the kids is now on Utah's staff, played pro basketball for 3 years, went Division I. And I met him as a fourth grader wearing jean shorts and like a t-shirt with a red Gatorade mustache. So like I thought I was gonna be a financial guy when I got done playing, and I just realized through all my stuff, all my hard work, like you said, like this could actually be something. And there's just so much more to it, obviously, now that I'm here and like you are. The second thing, kind of like you said with the kid on the plane, I've had so many players, man, just like reach out to me 5 years, 6 years, 7 years down the road. They're like, Thomas, the stuff that you told me back in 8th grade, 9th grade, I still live by. And I'm like, wait, you're 26 now.
Yeah.
But it just shows you that if you actually care, you've lived it, you have a meaningful, purposeful life, there are going to be people that gravitate towards you that are actually going to listen. And I think that gets to where I follow your stuff whenever I can. And I saw you on the court. I have a different eye. I could see like someone's like, oh, there's Jayson Tatum on the court and he wins the NBA championship. Right away, I saw you because I know who you are. And I was like, there's Drew. Look at him, man. That just shows me, that you care and he understands that you care and you guys have a real relationship. Now, most people are haters. We know I see you get hate all the time. You get hate all the time. I know I get hate all the time. But to me, the fortune favors the prepared mind. Louis Pasteur, famous quote. You're from St. Louis. And you just because you're from St. Louis, Tatum and you had the end with Beal and all that stuff. You knew what you wanted to do and you were prepared. So you have these people like, yeah, okay, I'm in Nebraska. If I wasn't in Nebraska, okay, but I think you would be successful anywhere you were. I truly believe that because you worked your butt off. You knew what you wanted to do, and fortune it favors that, and it's hard for people to grasp that.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's all about action too. Like, to be honest with you, when I first started out, I had no idea what I was doing. I just knew I was working really, really hard. And believe it or not, like when I started training and doing that stuff, that was in 2007. That was before YouTube, and that was before social media, and that was before all the drills that are all over the internet now. And so, what I had to do is I had to go to camps and clinics and ask coaches to go to lunch and pick their minds and pick their brains, and had to go to college basketball practices, had to, do all those little things. And I kept doing those little things. I still do those little things. I think that's the thing that people don't understand is if I'm at a park and I see a kid shooting the wrong way, I'll still go up and approach him and introduce myself and then start giving him drills just because I'm a purist at heart. I mean, that's what pure and pure sweat stands for. It's like the purity of the game. And I think that, the best players in the world, they keep that purity throughout their career. I think that the youth athletes that end up burning out, they lose that purity. And so I think the purity of the game is so important. And nowadays, when everything's so commercialized, everything is so driven by hype and highlights instead of just pure love of the game. I think that's one thing that I've never lost. I'm still breaking down film for hours and hours a day. And, I have people, my friends, that are like, listen, do you really need to do that? I'm like, listen, I don't need to do that because I'm in a position where, my clients trust me. I've been able to show that I can get results, but what got me here is going to keep me there. And I think that the majority of people, they shut it down, whether that's basketball players that, they get to the varsity level and they say, I'm not playing college basketball, so they stop working, or whether that's somebody that gets to college level, I'm not going to be a professional basketball player, they stop working, or whether that's an NBA athlete that gets paid and then stops working. And I think that's a lot of trainers and coaches too. One of the things that I can't stand is when coaches are preaching, my players are lazy. And I'm like, how much have you spent this week dedicating to your craft? Have you spent 3 hours a day like you're asking your players to? Because the majority of you aren't putting in any work. I have all these resources online and coaches are like, we don't want to invest in ourselves because our stipend isn't that much for high school basketball. And I'm like, you're doing a disservice to your players. And for me, the thing that really fuels me and motivates me is that my players trust me with sometimes the second most important thing in their life. The first most important thing is their circle, their family, their friends, their faith, like all their tight-knit things. But the second most important thing is their game. And that's what also a lot of times drives their happiness or their sadness and drives their confidence or insecurities is how they're doing on the court. And so if they trust me with that second most important thing in their life, I have to do anything and everything I can to make sure that I'm helping them as much as I can. I'm providing solutions for the problems they experience. I'm making sure that I'm doing all the little things so that they don't have to, so that by the time they get out on the court, they can get the results that they want. And so that's how I look at it. I look at it as, I did not know what I was doing at first, but what I did was I started and then I kept improving and I kept improving. And I look back and, this is my 18th year with Brad Beal. 18 years ago and now my training is so different. I did so many things that were wasting time back then, but the one thing that stayed consistent is I was willing to pour into my athletes. And, I think that they always fueled off of the confidence that I had in the ability for me to help them get the results that they want. And, it's a fun process. But that's what it is. It's constantly evolving. It's constantly refining your routines and making sure that you consistently find ways to get to that next level.
It's always surprising to me, Drew, the amount of people that are shocked by how much people like you and I work. And like you said, like they question why you do certain things. Like, why am I doing stuff on a Sunday night? Because I care. And I love what I do, and that's what it takes. And just people just don't have that drive and that passion. And I know for you that you have to be flying around all the time to see these guys. That's dedication. And like you said, you would burn out if you didn't care. You would stop doing this stuff. These guys wouldn't trust you. You wouldn't have these relationships. I know for a fact because I do this. I'm having calls at 2 a.m. with my NBA players. They're on the West Coast, and I'm like, hey, call me whenever. And that phone rings at 2 a.m. But nobody knows about that kind of stuff, and the dinners that you have and the lunches that we have with our players. That's the real stuff, man. That I love, and most people can't do it. They just can't do it. They don't want to do it. So
yeah, to me, there's a saying that I love, and it's there's a lot of people that want to do what I do, but there's not a lot of people that want to do what I did. And I think that that's the mentality. Is I have trainers all the time that hit me up and say, man, I want to train NBA players. And I'm like, great. Like, do you realize that, for about 5-6 years of my life, I was in my car driving around the Midwest doing camps and clinics, making sometimes $200 for a clinic, sometimes maybe $1,000 for a clinic. But there were nights where I was sleeping in my cars. There were nights where I was, selling books out of my backpack and the back of my trunk. And there were a ton of nights where I had to make a decision, like, was I going to do this or that? And those are the things that you have to do to get here. And so I always love looking back at my, the memories on Facebook. Like, the only thing I really use Facebook for is to see whose birthday it is and then the memories. But I'll look back and it'll say 15 years ago, and it'll be me in a small town in Iowa. And I'm so excited about training these 14 players that showed up that day. And it's really cool to me because I really have never lost that love. It doesn't matter if it's a kid picking up a basketball for the first time, or if it's an NBA superstar, I am going to pour into them with the same amount of energy, same amount of effort, same amount of dedication, focus, and really try to give as much as I can during the time that we're on the court together.
Your book is dropping. Stop bullshitting yourself on February 11th. You want to, obviously, we've already started talking about stuff that's equates to stop BSing yourself. Anything you want to share about the book that, maybe there's a few pages or a chapter that you are really passionate about that is going to be out there?
Yeah, I'm really excited. I mean, to be honest with you, the thing I'm most excited about is just helping young athletes, helping coaches, and helping everyday people to give them the system that I use with all my athletes. Year after year, I have people reach out, parents, players, coaches, and say, what is the process you use to help these players get better? And the process is pretty simple for me. It's identifying what is the one thing that could really improve your game? What is the one thing that could really improve your life? What is the one thing that is holding you back from getting to where you want to get to? And so the first part of the book is identifying the one thing in your life that you really want to tackle. Then the second part is breaking it down. And I know that seems simple, but there's an actual process, a blueprint that I've used for years that has allowed people to basically take that one thing, identify 3 pieces of that one thing, and break it into smaller sections so that they actually have an actionable plan. And so the thing that I'm most excited about is not just the stories, because I have a ton of stories in here. I have a story about Jayson Tatum when he's a junior in high school that's so cool, about how he really developed his killer mentality, which is, I mean, for players to be able to hear that stuff, it's awesome. I have a story about Zach LaVine, when he was younger and having to go through and wasn't highly ranked and then eventually became highly ranked. And it's that's really, really cool. And then, I have stories about Isaiah Thomas, who was an undersized guard, and I was even taller than him. And I'm over here thinking, I can't make the NBA, where for whatever reason, something fueled him to say, I can make the NBA, even though I'm shorter than Drew. And so I tell those real world stories so that people understand not only what it takes from the hard work, but also what it takes from a smart work. What's the process of building up a plan? And then what's the mentality like? But that's really what it is. I think it's also cool, I'm showing you, here's a graphic from it, but it breaks down everything so that you're actually filling in stuff as you go, so that by the end of the book, instead of just saying wow, I feel motivated, by the end of the book, you actually have a full blueprint. So it takes you through. It doesn't just say, it'll say, hey, this is one thing that Jayson did that really helped him out. Now you do it. Here's one thing that Brad did. Now you do it. And so basically you're writing in the book. And by the end of the book, you not only have this whole plan that identifies, here's the first thing that you need to work on, then the second thing, and here's the third thing, but it builds your own blueprint and it gives you actionable steps. And so then it's just as easy as, following through. And so I'm really excited about it just because I know how much it'll help players. I know how much it'll help coaches. I have coaches that use it for practice planning already. I've shared it to a couple of college coaches, and they're like, yo, this is genius because I've got 90 minutes. And so what I do is, what are the 3 things I want to work on today? And then 30 minutes and 40 minutes and 20 minutes, and boom, there's my hour and a half. And then I break down that 40 minutes into these things. And but that's really what it is. It's literally about how to identify the thing in your life that's holding you back, the thing in your game that's holding you back, the thing in business that's holding you back. Then the second part is building a blueprint that is allowing you to take actionable steps instead of having this big holistic goal that seems overwhelming and daunting. And then the third step is developing the mentality and giving you some strategies to really improve your confidence so that you finally do go all in and improve the thing that you've wanted to do for a long time.
I'm definitely going to share this podcast with everybody, but also the book, because I had the conversation last night with a young lady, a middle school young lady, going to be 6'3", tall. Who knows if she gets to college or whatnot, but she's got a chance. Her parents play college sports. She has no purpose. When she steps on the court, she doesn't know what she's doing. And I can only see her once a week sometimes, so you don't want to listen to your parents. You know how that is. So having something like this where you can start writing stuff down, you can look at it, you can hold yourself accountable. It's so huge in this generation now. It's you see it every day, you see it every hour, Drew. So no, I really think it's a smart idea, great idea, and hopefully players, coaches, business people can start doing it. And sharing this book and just little bits and pieces. It's just like in business too. People want to do this and that. It's like you have no plan, you have no purpose, and it's just like, oh, I want to do this. Like you said, I want to start training. I hear that all the time too. Thomas, I want to do what you do. It's like, do you though? you really want to do what I do? Because it's not what you think it is. And like you said, NBA players. I didn't start doing this to train NBA players. That's never been my thing. And that, I think, for me, has gotten me to where I'm at in my life. Now, I do have NBA players and overseas guys and tons of college players, but that's not what my purpose was. It was, I want to help people. I want to do things the right way. I want to be truthful through all my experiences and my knowledge. So no, man, I think your book's really going to take off, and I hope coaches share it more, because players need stuff, and we know a lot of players. The younger generation doesn't read much. They're not very well read.
I was gonna say, it's funny because I gave a copy to Zach Levine, and Zach was laughing because Zach's like, I never read books, and he picked it up, and the cool thing was the first thing he did was he flipped it open to like the part about him, and of course he read that part first, but afterwards he was like, yo, I love how everything's bite size. So there's no there's no section in there, no story in there, no tactic in there that's more than 2 pages. So people can literally pick it up, read 2 pages, set it down, move on. People can also pick it up and say, you know what, I'm struggling with my mentality, and go look and find the 3 or 4 mentality stories that really hit whatever, the problem that they're addressed, need to address, and go after that. So they, obviously it was written to be, a manual, a blueprint, a system that you go from, page 1 to the end of the book. But you can also just pick it up for quick bits of motivation, which I think is going to really hit home with the younger, TikTok generation, where they want everything quick and fast. And there are a ton of stories from their favorite players in the NBA that they've never heard of. And it takes them back. It's not just, this is how Jayson Tatum won a championship. No, it's like, hey, this is what Jayson Tatum was struggling with before he ever won a high school state championship. And this is how he did win the high school state championship. And so it can relate a lot more than the books that they're usually reading about success, where it's, hey, this is where they are now. And it feels so big of a gap between where the kids are reading the book and where the athletes are. But this is taking them back to when, hey, this is when they were 13. This is when they were 15, and I think that's what will really resonate with players.
That's awesome. I want to touch on the mental side, Drew, and you've mentioned the mental side a few times now. So my podcast is called 70-30. And when I was thinking of the name, it really just hit me pretty quick. And the reason it's 70-30, I met Kobe Bryant at ABCD camp. If you remember the ABCD camp years, I was at it my junior year up in Teaneck, New Jersey. And young Kobe, showed up on one of the days and spoke to us for like 45 minutes to an hour. And he finished the talk. Everyone's going crazy. And he's like, I have a question for everybody before I leave. What's basketball to you, mental to physical? And for me, my father, he played at St. Bonaventure, go Bonnies. All he did was say, work hard. I'm growing up in Alabama, just get out there, play against the best, work hard, work hard. That's all he ever said. He wasn't a big mental guy. That's not how he was raised. So I was like, man, I've never heard this. Everyone's yelling out different numbers. And he goes, to me, basketball is 70% mental, 30% physical. And sometimes it's even more. And obviously it's 2025 and it's never been more important. And you obviously touched on it. I know you touched on it with your book. Like, what can you touch on maybe with Zach, or Jason? Nate Lesnar, the associate head at Nebraska, he was coaching Zach with the Bulls, and a guy named Logan Power, one of my young Jedis in life, he was on the Bulls staff. They always said, Zach, man, he could easily be the best player in the NBA. What do you think with some of these guys, the mental side that you deal with that maybe people don't see? You don't have to go too deep into it, but like, what do you see from that?
Yeah, I'll give you a good Zach story. So Zach was unranked in high school, or way high, like way ranked up in there, like in the hundreds or whatever. And I think he was a freshman or sophomore, and he came to this camp. I was working out John Wall at the time, and John Wall put on this Reebok breakout camp. I think Zach was maybe a sophomore. And he was at the camp like everybody else. And that night they had selected 10 athletes to participate in a workout with John. And then we were going to play 5-on-5. We were going to play scrimmages against the NBA guys. And so I was working out the NBA guys, I was working out the high school guys, and then we were going to bring them together at night, but only for these select 10 players. And Zach was not selected in that 10. And I remember, and I didn't know who Zach was at this time. And Zach walked over to me and said, he's like, hey, Coach Drew, is there any way that I could come watch the workout tonight? Because I still want to see what you're showing them. I said, of course. I said, yo, bring your shoes. He's like, okay. So he gets there, he sits down in the front row because there's nobody else in the bleachers besides, a couple of, the shoe sponsors and stuff like that. And I said, put your shoes on, let's go. And he's like, well, I didn't get invited. I said, I don't care. It's my workout. And I was like, come on. And he jumped in the workout. I don't remember how he did during the workout, but then when we played 5-on-5, he went down and from just inside the free throw line, he did this dunk, between the leg dunk. And it went viral. This is like early mixtapes, whatever. And sure enough, he started you just saw his ranking just started going from nothing to 80 to 35 to 50 or whatever it was that he finished at. But he was still 50. And then he gets to college, and he was getting DNPs, which means do not play. Coach decision. Coach decided basically didn't play, or he played 10 minutes, or he was basically not playing as much as he should, is what I should say. Not DNPs, because he was normally getting minutes, but it was very low minutes. And then he says, I remember him messaging me on Twitter and was like, hey, bro, I know everybody's telling me I shouldn't go to the NBA. I should go back to college, but I want you to train me and I want to go in the NBA draft. I really think I can make it. And, right afterwards, there's a part in the book that literally talks about all the reporters, what they were saying. Zach LaVine's not even good enough to make a difference in the NCAA tournament. What is he doing declaring for the draft? Zach LaVine's going to look good in a Maine Red Claws jersey, G League jersey next season. Zach LaVine, doesn't even, contribute to winning at UCLA. What makes him think he can impact winning at a high level in the NBA? That's what everyone was saying about Zach. And he's projected the 29th pick at that time. And Zach didn't care. He was tuning out. All that stuff. Because something inside of him said, I don't care what everybody else says. I don't care what, is realistic. I know what I'm capable of. Sure enough, Zach had one of the most legendary pro days of all time. And, he ended up going 13th in the draft. And everyone was shocked. And then he went on to become a multiple-time All-Star, win multiple dunk contests, and, has made, I don't know, $300, $400 million and is still playing high-level basketball. And you're going, what? How did that happen? Well, what happened was he had something inside of him that was different. It was different in high school when he asked to come watch a workout that he wasn't invited to. It was different in college when he said, you know what, I don't care that coach isn't playing me, that I'm not starting. I know what I'm capable of. It was different in the pre-draft when all these experts were telling him that he was an idiot. And it's still, the thing that fuels him today is knowing that he's capable of doing what he's able to do. And so that's what I would tell you is you have to have this internal belief, you have to have this thing driving you that's different. And, I tell people all the time, one of my biggest mistakes was not believing that I could make it. Then I always give people trouble. Like when I see TJ McConnell, I always joke around with him because I'm good friends with him now. And I'm like, every time I see you play, it pisses me off because I know I was better than you. And he's like, you weren't, but it's just, and we go back and forth, but it's like, he believed something that I didn't. He believed he was capable. And so I think there's a lot of players out there that are capable of playing college basketball that don't believe they're capable. But the reason is because they've never worked like they need to work. They've never poured all in like they need to pour all in. But if they did those things, then they would start believing it's possible, because I really do believe action breeds confidence. One of the things that Tyrese Halliburton started off the season slow. And, our big thing was self-confidence is overrated. Build evidence. Build proof. And so what we started doing was, he'd have one game and he'd have 33 points and 13 assists. There's proof that you're really fucking good. And then the next game, he'd go out and have a 20-20 game. Well, there's more proof that you're really good. You're special. And just if you build enough evidence, you start believing in yourself. And I think that's what players need to do is for me, when I was in high school, my evidence was I shot 1,000 shots before school every day. I made 850 out of 1,000 every morning before school. Well, guess what? 850 times or more, I saw that ball go in every single day. That's building evidence. Damn, I'm a good shooter. Then I go and play high school basketball and win a state championship and player of the year in Missouri. There's more proof I'm good. Then I go to college, first team all conference, left Belmont as the winningest player ever, 17th all time in 3-point percentage. Why? Because I had built evidence. You know what I mean? And so I think that's what more players need to do is they need to build evidence. If you're not in the weight room lifting weights, well, obviously you're not going to have confidence that you're strong because you haven't put in that work. If you haven't been shooting hundreds and thousands of shots, you're not going to believe in yourself when it comes game time. If you don't play defense during practice, you just kind of, all right, I'm here for practice. I'm just going to kind of go through the drills and go through the motions. Well, then you're not going to have confidence in the games when it comes time to guard an all city, all conference player. So I really think that's what the book is all about. It's about, building proof, building evidence. You're stacking enough confidence in yourself that you actually say, wow, these things that feel, so far away are actually in reach if I just shrink them down and break them up into these, chunks that I can actually manage.
That was great. It's very, very similar to how I talk, Drew. And I could add on to this. If you had somebody like yourself or somebody like me when you were that, where would you be? And I think that's the missing ingredient. Tell me if I'm wrong for these guys, because when you get to that certain level, that's what I tell, like with my NBA players, they're not the Jayson Tatums and the Beals and Embiids, but like it's so much here. Like I can sit, we can work on stuff, we can work on shoot, we can work on a lot of the details, skill stuff, but this is what it takes. I mean, the amount of conversations that I have with my pro players, that's just the mental side of the day-to-day grind. And it doesn't matter how much money you make. That's the other thing that people don't get, man. Like 100%. It doesn't matter. So I think that the mental side, what you're saying, how I do things, we both do things, that's the next added thing of, hey, these guys need somebody to show them that way, that can believe in them, that trust them. That's the missing ingredient that people, when they want, I want to be a trainer. No. There's levels to this. It's chess. It's not checkers. Like this is real.
No. And again, it's cool. I'm going to read this. This is Jayson's forward. The last line. It was awesome. So basically he says, winning a championship was one of the best experiences in my life, but the real motivation comes from knowing that I can do it again. Because when the great ones get to the top of the mountain, they keep climbing. So to me, like that right there, and again, Jayson and Joel wrote the forwards for the book, which is cool for kids to kind of read and stuff. But that's the mentality. Jayson he has a Hall of Fame resume at 26. He, has won a championship. He's been named first team All-NBA multiple times. He's won 2 gold medals. He's done a lot of things that every player dreams of. And he's looking at it like this is the start, and it was really cool because last year he was part of the Starting 5 doc that Netflix did. And somebody was like, it's so cool that you told your story. And he said, no. He said, I let Netflix tell the story of this season, but the real story is just starting. The championship was the first part. And I think that's the mentality that you have to have if you really, truly want to be special is, it's one of those things where like find your peak and then keep climbing. Find your peak and then keep climbing. And I think most people, they think they're at their peak, but they know they're not. They know there's multiple other levels, and so whether that's a basketball player that knows that they can get to a different level, whether that's somebody, a mom or dad that knows that they can improve their health or their finances or, or their happiness. And everybody has levels they can tap into. And, I joke around all the time. I'm like, who's the best player in who's the best shooter ever? Everyone, Steph. And I'm like, he misses 55% of his threes. So even the best shooter ever, unanimous, it should be unanimous. He still has room for improvement. And so I think that's the big goal of the book is to develop that killer mentality that a lot of players are lacking, to build the confidence that a lot of players are lacking. Like literally somebody asked me the other day, who is the book for mostly? And I said, the book is for 2 people. I said, it really is for, if I grouped them together, it's for people that are settling for less than they know that they're capable of, that are struggling and striving to get to that next level. They want it, but they don't know how to get to it. And I said, but really, I said, if I had to pick one target market, it would be the kid that gets in the car after a game and he's frustrated. The kid that gets in the car after the game and he's frustrated. Whether that's an all-conference player, all-state player, or whether that's somebody that's on a JV team, freshman team, it's a kid that gets in the car that says, man, I don't have confidence. I'm not enjoying this as much as I should. That person right there. And the other one is the parent that goes to sleep at night with a million thoughts in their mind. I want to get my life together. I want to get my body together. I want to get my finances together. Like those two people are the people that I wrote the book for. It's for the people that they do want it. They just don't know how to get it, or they lack that confidence that they can get it. And it's like, I'm so excited. Not like the book comes out next month, but I'm more excited 9 months from now when people start writing little testimonial emails to me and say, hey, I want to keep this anonymous. I don't want to keep this. I put this on the internet, and then tell me how they turn their game or their life or their business around, using the strategies from the book.
That's awesome, man. But again, it's where you started and here you are, all the hard work you put into it, and you're just seeing the bits and pieces starting to really flourish. If it's cool with you, talk a little shooting. We'll go kind of maybe off course real quick. You were a shooter. I was a shooter. I know I've seen some of the stuff that you've done talking about shooting. What I do, Drew, and then you can say what you do. I used to not teach shooting. When I started Viglianco Hoops, I was like, hey, I've played with so many guys that have funky shots, this, that, and the other. But what I realized right away is they shot millions and millions and millions of shots. So they developed whatever that little funky thing was, they could correct, or it was corrected by knowing how they shoot. And my big things, you can, like, I'm a feet straight guy. Now, are there guys that come in, girls that come in that have their feet a little turned? That's fine. I'm cool with that. There's a flick. I think I saw you say something like with Caitlin Clark, she does, big thumb flick. I don't do a thumb flick because it messes with my spin. But there's players that do the thumb flick, and it doesn't mess with their stuff.
Mine actually imparts more backspin. It's weird because I've been on every system that you possibly can that detracts like the axle and stuff like that. And I always wanted, because it was weird, when I first started doing videos, I would shoot different. So when I shoot in games, when I shoot in pickups, I use my thumb. And then when I shoot on videos, I would take my thumb off. And people are like, how do you do that? And I'm like, well, obviously I've trained myself to be able to shoot multiple ways. But I said, this actually accelerates the backspin. But I hated seeing early on when I was younger, I hated seeing the comments in my, well, Coach Drew, you, and I like, so you look at Tyrese Halliburton, he crosses his hands almost like Reggie did back in the day. And he's been a career 40% shooter in college and in high school and in the pros. You look at people have so many different shots. Steph Curry starts with his hand on the side of the ball, and then he turns it over. You wouldn't tell Steph to change his shot. So here's what I tell people all the time. You need the 3 C's. Consistent. It's got to be consistent. Whatever you do has to be repeatable. You have to be confident in it, and you have to be comfortable with it. So if you're not comfortable, if you're trying to tuck your elbow in or tuck your elbow out and it feels uncomfortable, you're never going to be a good shooter. It's hard to develop confidence when you're uncomfortable. Confidence, you got to believe that thing's going in. If you don't believe it's going in, it's not going in. And then consistent, it's got to be consistent. Now, the things that I think that all good shooters have, they all have their hand in the middle of the ball at the point of release. It might start weird, but it's going to get to the point where the ball is in the middle of their hand at the point of release. Second thing they have is a straight high snap. Everybody snaps straight and the ball goes high because the more room for the better the drop angle, the more room for error. And that all comes from arc. A third thing they all have is balance. So we did a huge study years ago. And to be honest with you, I was a 10-toe shooter, a squared shooter. But when I did the study, I realized in the NBA, at least, very few shots actually were squared. Most of them were at a little bit of a tilt. And I was totally fine with that. But what we did realize is there was a direct correlation. The more you twist, the more you miss. So if you start at 11 o'clock, you have to land at 11 o'clock. If you go from 11 to 10 or 11 to 9, there was literally a direct correlation. Now, we did segment out because the first time we did the study, everyone was like, yeah, of course, because spot-up shots are going to go straight up and down, whereas when you're moving. And we did realize that the more you drift to your strong shooting hand, the more you're going to twist. But then we found a weird one, which was the wider the base, the actual better results as well. So if you do twist, you just want to maintain that wide base. You don't want a hockey stop where your feet come together. So hand in the middle of the ball at the point of release, straight high snap, maintain balance throughout your shot. And then the last thing is fluidity, connectivity. We've seen people that hold the ball and shoot on the way down and do all that. They always struggle. And so I think those are the big 4. I think there's obviously a million more that you can do. But if you have good hand placement at the point of release, which is all that really matters, if you have a straight high snap, that means the ball is going to be back spinning and have arc. Then you maintain your balance, so you're not shooting at a moving target. And then you have fluidity so that everything's connected and there's no glitches or hitches. I think then you're going to have a chance to make a lot of shots.
I'm a straightforward guy, But like I said, if you're going to be here, like you said, let's land here. Let's land here. Let's not land more because we know that arm starts getting crazy. Everything starts twisting, especially the further we get away. Snap the wrist, 100%. Eyes. I'm a front of the rim guy. I used to be a back of the rim guy when I was a kid, but I would literally, because I'm literally thinking back of the rim, it'd clank, clank, clank. I'm over the front of the rim trying to get all net every time. I'm trying to pop the net. If it hits the front of the rim with my spin, it's so fast, it's going to go in like a golf ball spinning. If it hits a little short, then I know I just need to get a little bit more snap. But I got guys that look at the ball.
I've never changed somebody. If they're a ball watcher, they're a ball watcher. If they're a rim watcher, they're a rim watcher. What I always tell them to try to do is I actually tell them try to imagine like the path of the ball going in. So it's almost like a good bowler doesn't look at the pins. A good bowler finds that little mark on the floor right before and then, hits that mark. A good golfer, a good putter, they find the closest thing that they can roll it over. In basketball, to me, it's all about finding that path, the ball path. And so that's what I try to get my guys to envision is just like, hey, shoot the ball and have that path and try to hit that path so that the ball does drop in. There's actual science behind it, though. You don't want to aim in the middle because, the ball's coming in at an angle. So what you want to do is aim a little bit past the middle. So really that's why that back knot is really what you're really should aim for if you're being like, scientific with it and stuff like that. But let me see. I got something that I can show you, which is actually pretty cool, just being super geeky because that's what we're doing right now. Yeah, here it is right here. Okay, so try to share this on screen. I know screen on screen. But this actually shows that's where you actually should. Everyone thinks that the white dot right here is where you should aim, but you should actually aim at the back a little bit because of the ball path. And then if you look at the other thing that actually makes a big difference, which some of your players might really like, is this is the path, and it shows the room for error. So if you just 35, you just don't have much room for error, whereas, 50 you do. So 45 to 50 is what you're looking for degrees, whereas otherwise you just don't have much room for error. So you want that good arc every single time. I think the flat shooters they struggle with inconsistency because as soon as it hits the rim, it jumps off. So you want as high and controllable arc as possible, which is what all good shooters have.
And then it gets back to, like you said, consistency. That's why I see the biggest thing. They just, like you said, you were shooting, 850, make 850, shoot 1,000 shots. It's the same thing with me. And I just see so many players just don't do it. They'd rather do the 18 combo dribbles, the all the other things. It's like, man, if you can't, I always say you can't shoot, you can't play because I'm not going to guard you, Drew. If you can't shoot, I'm not guarding you. And I think it's easy, but then again, it's really, really hard because you have to put the purposeful, consistent work in.
Yeah, no, I mean, it goes back to this isn't shooting, but this is a skills component that relates to shooting. A lot of people think shooting is boring to get good at shooting because you have to make changes and you have to start in close and you have to do a lot of form shots and you have to do a lot of things that, aren't necessarily as fun as doing the combo drills and whatever. But, Jayson also wrote about his first week with me. As a 13-year-old, Jayson did not shoot one shot the first week. All we did was work on his jab. We were studying film. We were watching Kobe. We were watching Melo. We were watching T-Mac. We were watching MJ. We were watching all these guys that were really, really good at footwork and mid-post. And we just were working on his pace of his jab. We were working on his intensity of his jab. We were working on the ball path. We were working on his pace. We were working on activating, all those things. And I remember after like day 4, I was like, all right, you ready to move on? He's like, finally. And I was like, all right, now we got the jab, one dribble pull-up. And he was like, damn, man, I want to do all the things that I see Brad Beal doing. Because Brad was a couple years older than him, and Brad was like a big brother to him. And I'm like, this is year like 4 for Brad. This is day 5 for you. You know what I mean? So, but he bought into it. He was like, let's build my foundation so that I can just do anything and everything. And now there's times where like he hit a move the other day that I don't think we had ever worked on. I really don't. It just was a natural reaction, but his footwork is so good because it's polished. It's fundamental. And he's able to pivot off both feet. He's able to spin off both feet. He's able to stay on balance. He's able to do it. And he did the move. And afterwards, he's like, yo, that was cold. He's like, I don't know where I got that from. I was like, I didn't teach you. You know what I mean? Like, that just was natural. And that's what you want. You want to have the ability to just react instead of overthink and over-prepare and kind of do everything. And so I would say with shooting, you got to take that same process. I always say you only can change one thing at a time. And you got to build that thing up, and then you move on to the next thing, and then you move on to the next thing. And again, that's the process of the book. You know what I mean? It's don't have this audacious goal that you're going to go from being a thumb flicking, chest throwing shooter to like this perfect Klay Thompson shot. It's just not going to happen. Get good at, okay, let's just improve the snap. And then let's improve the hand placement. And then let's improve the arc. And then let's improve the elbow placement. And then let's improve the shot pocket. And then and you just go through the checklist. And eventually I changed my shot after my 8th grade year because I was a chest shooter because I shot so many shots when I was younger. I was a hard worker, but that developed into a lot of bad habits. And that's why I'm big on younger players, smaller ball, smaller basket, trying to, scoot in. I know that 3-pointers, everybody wants to make, I get emails all the time. Hey, I know you don't work with, individually with 3rd and 4th graders, but I have the best 3rd grade shooter in America. I'm like, come on now. That person's not even strong enough to shoot with good mechanics. So like, I really do think that I hope parents that are listening to this, buy into the slow process that sometimes isn't as cool and isn't as fun, but it ultimately prepares them for the future and gets them results when they need to, which is being at their best in high school when they need to get the college scholarships, being at their best in college when they're trying to get the pro contracts.
We'll finish with 2 things, and I know you got to get out of here, Drew. I talked to a few of my high school guys, and they're like, "Man, you got Drew coming on. That's awesome. This, that, and the other." What do you? Because we know the 5-year deal might be happening with NCAA and players getting 5 years, just blanketed that. What would you be telling, or what are you telling high school players around the country when you see them when they're like, "Hey, I'm not getting the looks. No coaches are really looking at me. We already know it's not going to happen until probably junior, senior year, unless you're a top 50 guy, top 75 guy." What would you tell high school players around the country, girls and guys, to stay motivated, to stay mentally prepared and all that? Any thoughts?
I mean, one enough, if you're good enough, they're going to find you. You know what I mean? If you're good enough, they're going to find you. Whether you're on a AAU team that gives you exposure, or whether you're just really good in your area and the word gets around town that we got somebody that's doing things. But I would say the first thing is be so good that you can't be ignored. It's one of those things where, like, if you're averaging 12 points a game and you're on the fringe and you're not in a high exposure area, you might be overlooked and overseen. So you're going to have to, do more, which might not seem fair, but life isn't fair. You know what I mean? I got overlooked. I was the player of the year in Missouri, the player of the year. I won state championship. I was the only Division I player on my team. In the state finals, we knocked off a team that had 4 Division I players and a couple younger players on their bench that were Division I. In the quarterfinals, they had 5 Division I players and 2 NFL players, and we beat them. They didn't care. They were still like, he's going to be too small. He's going to be, he's not athletic enough. So you are going to have to go up against those narratives and those things. Small town, small county. That's why they're putting up the numbers. So just be so good that they can't be ignored. Second thing is, put together game film, not highlights. Anybody can look good in a highlight, but go cut up your best halves. Here's 3 halves, and send it to realistic schools that might not have the recruiting budget. Don't send it to Duke if you're not a Duke player. Go send it to, hey, guess what? There are 8 Division I small schools that I think would have interest in me, that I fit their culture, I fit their athletic program, I fit their academics, and go email them and say, "Coach, I really have interest in your school. Here's 3 halves to make it easy on you." And a lot of times the head coach won't watch it. The associate head coach won't watch it. They'll put it on one of their, their GAs or something like that. But if you look good in live play, they might say, "Hey, take a shot." Another thing is go to their elite camps. Go to their camps, show up to them. If they're not recruiting you, go to them. And again, be so good that you can't be ignored. But I think those are some of the things that I would do. And, just remember that, like, the name of the jersey that you're playing for does not really matter. It's about getting the education. It's about getting the experience. It's about building friendships, all that kind of stuff. Because, when I was in high school, I had some bigger offers in Belmont, some high major offers, but it wouldn't have been the best fit for me. And I went to Belmont, and I would not have traded my experience for anything. I got to play in multiple NCAA tournaments. My senior year, we opened up at Duke, lost by 1 at Duke. I got to play in some really cool atmospheres. And, nowadays I look back and I'm like, thank God I didn't just choose the biggest name. I chose the best fit. So don't run away from those things. Just, attack them, do the work. You might have to do more if you're at a smaller school or if you're a smaller player or whatever, but that's just part of the process.
I think it gets back to your life and my life, like where you started. You were sleeping in a car some nights, doing little camps and doing this, that, and the other, and now you're here. But we forget that whole journey. And players might have to go to a JUCO or a D2 to get to where they want to be, and there's nothing wrong with that. Because to me, that's what life's all about, right? That's what you've experienced. That's what I've experienced. It's all a part of your story of life. And if you can add more and more things to it, that's what makes you who you are, and that's what makes you more attractable to business people, to whatever it is in life. So I think players can't be afraid of taking maybe a step back in their mind, where it's really you're jumping 10 hoops a year from now, but you can't see 100%. That. Well, we'll finish with this, Drew. Because I know what I believe and I feel, so I'll add on after what you say. When are your best times with your guys, with your people, with the Zachs and the Embiids and the Halliburtons, and is it having a dinner, talking life, talking the mental side? Is it right after a workout? Is it when do you find the most like, man, this is what life's all about?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's like you said, the 2 a.m. conversations. Like, it's one of those ones where after a game, you're sitting there chilling, you're watching a show, or you're watching them play video games, and then, sometime after midnight, they turn to you and say, man, and whatever follows man or bro or whatever they use to acknowledge you. That's when the real conversations happen. For me, when I first started, it was all about getting results on the court. And what I quickly realized is to really win in life, you have to win on and off the court. And so, I spend more time being a therapist and being a friend and being, a babysitter than I do, being a trainer sometimes. And that's okay. Really, it's all about getting results. And to me, you have to win on and off the court to truly experience the results that you're after. And so, I've seen myself transition into more of a life coach than, just a basketball coach. And I've realized, that's, a big part of the process. You talked about the 70-30 thing that Kobe said. And I mean, it is real, it is hard. A lot of times when players go through slumps on the court, it's because something off the court. And a lot of times when they're going through slumps on the court, it bleeds to, them experiencing bad things off the court. And so you want to make sure they're winning on and off the court. And so, I have fun just kicking it. To me, I think the reason I have such a good relationship with my guys is because I don't look at them as superstars. I talk shit to them. I literally am a professional shit talker. You know what I mean? Like that it's funny when I got testimonials for the book. I mean, literally every single one of my guys was like, he's the biggest shit talker. He's the biggest trash talker. And I'm like, that's what I am. But I do it in a loving way where I'm constantly motivating them. I'm constantly challenging them. I'm constantly pushing them to levels that they can't push themselves. And so, that's what I think is the best time, is just being able to sit back and really appreciate all the hard work they've put in to get all the results that they've got. And I think that's the ultimate win.
I love it, man. That's what I love. Like I'm getting texts right now from my guy Sam Griesel over in Germany. They're playing, and we talk daily about life. And it's basketball a lot of times, but when he's not here, because I can't be in Germany, but it's all the other stuff that people just don't see, don't really want to deal with. But I want to, because I've lived it, and it's my passion, and it's my legacy, just like it's your legacy. And hey, man, can't thank you enough for coming on. This was a lot of fun.
Appreciate it.
Stop bullshitting yourself coming
out. Why everybody go get a book.
And Drew, hopefully we'll finally cross paths sometime soon and be able to have lunch or dinner and chop it up even more. And no, man, I really appreciate you. And this was a lot of fun.
Awesome. Appreciate you, man. Thank you.
All right. See you, Drew.